Hello and welcome to our online program of events, Signals of Hope Cairo, organized by the Frankfurt Book Fair in cooperation with Goethe-Institute, Arab Voices, and the EPA. I would like to thank our partners. This event is also supported by the German Federal Foreign Office. And the idea is to give you a series of inspiring events to get new knowledge and inspiration from Egypt and from Germany or German-speaking countries. I wish you a very successful exchange with our guest speakers, and I hand over to Abir Megahed from Goethe-Institute.
Thank you, Nikki. مساء الخير الناشرين والناشرات. مساء الخير كل المهتمين بصناعة النشر والمترجمين والمترجمات. بنرحب بيكم النهاردة في بداية لسلسلة من ندوات خاصة بمحترفي صناعة النشر، والندوة بتاعتنا النهاردة هتكون بعنوان أساسيات النشر، ولكن هيتبعها ندوتين آخرين. واحدة هتكون في يوم 30/6 وعنوانها النشر الإلكتروني، وأخرى هتكون في 6/4 وهيكون العنوان بتاعها بيع حقوق الترجمة. وأيضا هناك ندوتين هيقام في يوليو القادم بإذن الله، وهنعلن عنهم تباعا إن شاء الله. تتابعونا في المواعيد بتاعتها. بحب أشكر جزيلا شركائنا معرض فرانكفورت للكتاب، وأيضا Arab Voices، واتحاد الناشرين المصريين. والندوات بتاعتنا بتقام تحت شعار القاهرة الأمل يبدأ، ونتمنى أنه الأمل يبدأ. وبدي لشريف الكلمة. اتفضل يا شريف.
أهلا بيكم، برحب بيكم كلكم في القاهرة الأمل يبدأ، البرنامج اللي احنا مستضيفنا النهاردة أو احنا صممناه مخصوص علشان الناشرين العرب والمصريين. هدف البرنامج الأساسي إن احنا بنساعد الناشرين على بناء برنامج للنشر، بمعنى إن كلنا كناشرين عندنا فرص كتيرة، عندنا أفكار كتيرة، عندنا احتمالات لشغل كتير، بس ساعات بنقف في نقطة ما بنبقاش عارفين إيه المناسب لينا أو إيه اللي المفروض الواحد يكمل في ده، يعمل إزاي، يعمل بادجت إزاي للنشر، يقيم السنة اللي فاتت، يقيم السنة الجاية. الفكرة في القاهرة الأمل يبدأ إن إحنا تعرضنا لسنة صعبة قوي ولسه فيها للأسف، يعني مكملة معانا 1.5 سنة على الأقل في النشر في مصر. يعني المعارض العربية توقفت، الظروف بقت صعبة جدا، فإحنا بنحاول ندي أمل للجميع، أمل للناشرين على مدار هيبقوا تقريبا 5 ندوات هنعملها. هنبتدي ب3 دلوقتي. دي أول واحدة فيهم، إن إحنا نقول إزاي الأمل يبدأ أو إزاي نقف مع بعض ونساعد بعض. إحنا طبعا البارتنرز اللي معانا، الشركاء بتوعنا، وزارة الخارجية الألمانية هي الممولة المشروع، معرض فرانكفورت للكتاب، معهد لوتا في القاهرة، اتحاد الناشرين المصريين، وأرب فويسز. في أثناء الجلسة تقدر أي حد، إحنا هنبقى قافلين الصوت والكاميرا، بس أي حد عايز يكتب اي سؤال للبانل في اي وقت يقدر يخش على الكيو&اي، في زرار تحت هتلاقوه مكتوب كيو&اي، يقدر يخش في اي وقت يحط اي سؤال، وهنحاول نلم الاسئله كلها ونرد عليها في الاخر. برضو هيبقى الكلام بالعربي في على اليمين، لو حد مش شايف هيبقى هنا في الشانل للترجمه في انجليزي وعربي، برضو يقدر يسويتش بينهم لو عايز يسمع. احنا هنتكلم بالعربي، بس في وقت معين هنبقى ما كلنا بنتكلم هنغير للانجليزي، فانا انصح ان احنا نختار الشانل بالعربي. وبرضه هنحاول نتكلم براحه على قد ما نقدر، ونبقى واضحين معاكم لو في الاسئله او في اي حاجه نقدر نعمل مع بعض. هنبتدي معانا دلوقتي نورا رشاد من الدار المصريه اللبنانيه، هتعرفنا من نفسها وهتعمل لنا برزنتيشن صغيره عن الموضوع. اتفضلي يا نورا.
ميرسي يا شريف، مساء الخير. أنا مبسوطة جدا إن أنا النهاردة في الجلسة الافتتاحية لبرنامج Signals of Hope، وبشكر كل القائمين عليه. أنا يعني بشتغل في النشر من ساعة لما اتخرجت من 15 سنة، بس طبعا كنت محظوظة إن أنا من وأنا صغيرة متربية طبعا في بيت يعني كل الكلام فيه عن الكتب وكده. إحنا النهاردة المفروض هنتكلم على أساسيات النشر بما إنها الجلسة الافتتاحية، وهحاول في الوقت يعني المفروض إن إحنا نتكلم فيه أقول شوية حاجات، ولو في الآخر حد عنده أي استفسار ممكن طبعا يسألنا عليه. ثانية واحدة بس بعمل البرزنتيشن. احنا طبعا اي حد فينا لما بيجي يقرر ان هو يعمل دار نشر بيبقى لازم في اسئله كتيره لازم يسالها لنفسه. هو ليه حابب ان هو يفتح دار نشر؟ لان احنا طبعا مهنتنا صعبه جدا وفيها تفاصيل كتيره قوي، وطبعا كلنا عارفين انه الناشر بيعمل حاجات اكتر بكتير من ان هو بيطبع كتب. لان ببساطه لو حد عايز مجرد يطبع كتاب من غير ما يبقى عنده وجهه نظر ناشر ممكن يروح لاي مطبعه ويجيب رقم ايداع ويعمل ده. فاحنا دايما بنقول ان في تفاصيل لازم نحاول ناخد بالنا منها، وطبيعي في ترايل اند ايرور كتير ممكن يحصل من ناشرين مننا كتير، بس على قد ما بنقدر بنحاول ان احنا ناخد بالنا ونتفادى اي اخطاء بتحصل. ويمكن الاستاذ محمد رشاد رئيس مجلس الاداره عندنا دايما ليه مقوله، طبعا هي مقوله شهيره يعني عن الناشرين، ان الناشر بيحتاج 3 حاجات: بيحتاج صبر ايوب، وبيحتاج عمر نوح، وبيحتاج مال قارون. وطبعا ال3 حاجات دول يعني مش بسهوله بيتوفروا، لكن بنحاول. وانا بشوف ان في فاكت مهمه جدا، ان كل ناشر لازم يبقى عنده رؤيه واضحه هو عايز يعمل ايه وعايز يتخصص في اي مجال. ويمكن احنا في الدار المصريه اللبنانيه بننشر في مجالات كتيره قوي، ودايما بقول لهم لو انا كان عندي الفرصه كنت احب ان انا اتخصص في حاجات معينه، لكن اكيد كل حاجه بيبقى ليها البروز اند كونز. بس انا بشوف ان التخصص دايما بيبقى مفيد خصوصا لاي ناشر لسه بيبدا. طبعا البروسيس بتاعه النشر ليها يعني خطوات كتيره، ما ينفعش ان احنا ما نمشيهاش بالترتيب. وانا بشوف ان اول حاجه مهمه جدا لكل ناشر ان هو كل سنه يبقى عنده بادجت، ميزانيه تقريبيه، ان هو يقول هو تقريبا هيصرف قد ايه على النشر. طبعا الميزانيه دي بتكون مش شرط تكون ان هي ميزانيه ثابته بالظبط، لكن بيحاول ان يبقى فيه افريج. ويمكن كل سنه بتبقى دايما الميزانيه بنتخطاها، لكن يمكن السنه دي بسبب الظروف اللي مرينا بيها كلنا اكيد مصاريف النشر قلت، لكن في نفس الوقت اضطرينا ان احنا نوظف المصاريف اللي عندنا دي في حاجات تانية تخدم الدعايه، سواء مثلا اونلاين وحاجات كتيره قوي، عشان نعوض خساره المعارض والخسارات الخساره اللي احنا مرينا بيها، الخسائر اللي مرينا بيها. الحاجه الثانيه اللي بتبقى دايما موجوده عندنا لما بنيجي نبتدي في عمليه النشر هي اختيار العناوين. وطبعا اختيار العناوين ده بقى بيتم سواء من خلال الايميل او ان حد في كاتب كلمه. وانا بشوف دايما ان لازم الكاتب نبلغه ان احنا هندرس العنوان، لان كتير قوي بنقابل مشكله ان احنا نقعد ندرس العنوان وبعدين عبال ما نيجي نقول للكاتب نلاقيه تعاقد مع حد تاني. ودي بتبقى طبعا مشكله، ان احنا بنبقى ضيعنا وقت طويل. ولازم كل يعني ناشر يحط لنفسه تايم فريم، هو هياخد وقت قد ايه. بنيجي بعد كده لو احنا وافقنا على العنوان لازم الاول بنعمل جلسه مع المؤلف وبنتكلم معاه. بيبقى معانا دايما احنا عندنا في الدار بنعمل زي تقرير وبيبقى فيه اقتراحات للنشر. وطبعا ما بنحبش نقول ملاحظات، بنقول اقتراحات، لان الاقتراحات دي لازم الكاتب لو وافق عليها هو اللي يعملها بنفسه. ولو الكاتب وافق بنعمل العقد. ومهم جدا ان قبل بدايه الشغل في الكتاب ان احنا نعمل العقد، لانه كتير الناشر بيقع في مشكله ان هو يعني يبتدي في شغل في الكتاب وبعد كده عبال ما يجي يعمل العقد ممكن يلاقي الكاتب مثلا اختلف معاه او خد النسخه اللي الناشر تعب فيها ومثلا خدها لدار نشر تانية. وبنبدا بعد ما بنعمل العقد بقى مرحله التحرير. ودايما بيبقى في حاجه اسمها في الاول اعداد، والاعداد دي اللي بيقوم بيها محرر ادبي. وطبعا يعني الوقت ضيق جدا ان احنا نقول، بس اعتقد معظم الناشرين هيبقوا عارفين طبعا الفرق ما بين المحرر والمدقق. وبعد كده في الآخر لازم آخر نسخة بتمر على المدقق اللغوي، وكل بروفا بتطلع أو كل مسودة بتطلع لازم الكاتب يبص عليها، وفي الآخر لازم الكاتب طبعا يمضي ويقول إن الكتاب يطبع. في خلال المرحلة دي مرحلة المراجعة بنعمل حاجة مهمة جدا، وهي إن إحنا نستقر على اسم الكتاب، لأن في معظم الأحيان يعني معظم الكتب اللي بتجيلنا دايما اسم الكتاب بيتغير، لأنه في الآخر اسم الكتاب ده مرتبط بالتسويق هو والغلاف، والغلاف دايما بيبقى كلمته الأخرانية للتسويق، وطبعا ده الصراع الأبدي دايما ما بين النشر والتسويق، إن دايما طبعا التسويق هو اللي بيقول للأسف كلمته الأخرانية، عشان في الآخر لازم شكل الغلاف يكون مناسب والعنوان كمان يكون مناسب. انا بشوف برضو ان مهم جدا ان كل ناشر يشتغل على مقاسات ستاندرد، يعني مثلا الابداع يبقى ليه مقاس، لو عنده حاجه نون فيكشن يبقى ليها مقاس، ومهم جدا ان هو دايما يحافظ على المكان اللي بيحط فيه اللوجو بتاعه، لان ده حاجه بتربط القارئ باسم الدار، ودي حاجه مهمه جدا. بنيجي بعد كده على المرحله اللي هي الخاصه بالطباعه والترويج. انا بشوف ان المفروض ان الناشر دايما يبقى عنده علاقات لونج تيرم مع مطابع وحتى مع كتاب. طبعا هي دايما علاقات في النشر طويله الاجل بتبقى افضل بكتير قوي، وخصوصا في قصه الطباعه عشان دايما يبقى ليه برايورتي والكواليتي والوقت وكل الكلام ده. اول لما الكتاب بيروح المطبعه انا بحب دايما ان احنا نروج للكتاب لما يروح المطبعه، لانه ساعات بنقع كتير كلنا في خطأ ان احنا نروج للكتاب بدري جدا، وبعد كده يحصل اي حاجه والكتاب يتاخر، وبعدين القراء they lose interest، بعد كده بيفضلوا يسالوا عليه كتير، وبعدين بيلاقوا نفسهم ان هم مش لاقيينه. ممكن برضو في الوقت اللي لما الكتاب يكون في المطبعه نبتدي بقى نتكلم مع المكتبات ونقول لهم ان احنا عندنا العنوان الجديد، ونبتدي نجهز للبوك لونش ونجهز للبوك سايننجز وندوات، ولو مثلا الكتاب يقدروا يعملوا نسخ موقعه. وحاجه كمان مهمه جدا هي تسعير الكتاب. لازم يعني عمرنا ما بنسعر الكتاب غير لما يوم ما بيخرج من المطبعه، لانه طبعا سعر الكتاب ده بيتاثر جامد قوي بحاجات كتيره قوي، من اهمها طبعا سعر الورق والتكاليف كلها اللي اتحطت على الكتاب او اتضافت على الكتاب. وطبعا في الظروف اللي احنا فيها دي مهم جدا ان احنا نعرف ان الاونلاين ماركتينج بقى مهم جدا، وان احنا ما نقدرش ان احنا يعني نستغنى عنه خالص في الظروف اللي احنا فيها دي. يعني انا يعني مش عايزه اكون طولت عليكم، وعايزه الخص بعض النقاط اللي احنا اتكلمنا فيها. يعني انا بشوف ان احنا محظوظين جدا كناشرين ان احنا بنشتغل في مهنه فيها رساله كبيره، بس طبعا مش عايزين ننسى ان هي اكيد تجاره، لانه مش هنقدر نستمر لو احنا ما فكرناش ان احنا نحقق مكاسب. زي ما قلت الناشر طبعا بيحتاج كثير من الصبر والخبره، وبشوف ان كل كتاب لازم نتعامل معاه ان هو بروجكت مستقل من اوله لاخره، من ساعه لما المانuscript بنستلمه لغايه لما بيخرج من المطبعه، وبيبقى برضو لسه دورنا ما انتهاش. وبيبقى لازم الكاتب طبعا بيساعدنا. دايما بنقول ان الناشر والكاتب دايما نقول ان هم في مركب واحده، ما ينفعش الناشر يشتغل لوحده من غير ما يكون برضو الكاتب بيساعده. ودايما بنقعد نقول لنفسنا ان احنا لازم ناخد وقتنا في ان احنا نراجع، وان احنا لان طبعا الخطأ عندنا مكلف جدا في النشر. وحاجه كمان بحب اضيفها اللي هي فكره ان الناشرين لازم يقروا، لان كتير بستغرب لما الاقي ناشر بيقول لا انا معتمد على لجنه القرايه اللي معايا. طبعا لجان القرايه مهمه جدا، لكن ما بينفعش خالص ان الناشر يعني ينشر حاجه هو مش عارف عنها حاجه. وفي الاخر انا بحب اختم معاكم بكلمه استاذ محمد رشاد رئيس مجلس اداره الدار المصريه ورئيس اتحاد الناشرين العرب كتبها من زمان، من ساعه لما ابتدى يفكر ان هو يخش مجال النشر في السبعينات، وحابه ان انا اشارككم معاها واشارككم بيها واختم بيها. حلمي حلمت دوما ان اذهب نحو النور، ماسكا بيدي كتابا يضيء الدنيا ويوسع الآفاق ويشغل الناس ويجعل القراء يتحاورون ويختلفون. حلمت أن أكون ناشرا أفقه السماوات والأرض، أنشر للجميع، لمن أتفق معهم ومن أختلف، ممن يسكن إلى جواري ومن يسكن في أبعد نقطة من العالم. هدفي هو التنوير وسبيل التعامل الصادق والشفافية المطلقة، ورسالتي إضاءة أرواح القراء وإشعال قلوبهم فكرا وثقافة. بشكركم جدا، ويا رب ما كنتش طولت عليكم. ميرسي خالص.
شكرا نورا، ألف شكر وميرسي على البرزنتيشن الجميلة دي، يعني ملهمة جدا، وخصوصا الكلام اللي في الآخر. متهيألي في جزء كبير حتى له علاقة بحرية النشر والاختلاف، ودي حاجة أساسية في المهنة عندنا، إن إحنا قد نختلف وإن إحنا ننشر للناس حتى اللي بنختلف معاهم، ودي رسالة مهمة جدا في النشر. قبل ما ننتقل بفكركم تاني ان انتوا تقدروا تبعتوا في الكيو اند اي، الزرار اللي تحت بتاع الكيو اند اي، تقدروا تبعتوا اسئله لينا في اي وقت، وهناخد الاسئله دي كلها في الاخر ونجاوبها ان شاء الله. وفي اللي برضو داخل بيسمع الشانل، على اليمين خالص هيلاقي فيه ترجمه. لو النص هيبقى بالانجليزي هيبقى فيه ترجمه بالعربي، او بالالماني هيبقى فيه ترجمه بالعربي، ففرصه برضو علشان يبقى الموضوع اسهل للجميع. دلوقتي هننتقل لسويسرا. معانا من سويسرا ناشر بينشر باللغه الالمانيه، هو الناشر اللي نشر لنجيب محفوظ ونشر كثير من الادباء العرب، وعنده تجربه كبيره مع الادب العربي، ويمكن برضو ده ممكن يبقى محور سؤال، ان ازاي نوصل بالادب العربي اللي عندهم، او هم بيختاروا ازاي الادب العربي من عندنا. معانا لوسيان من سويسرا. Please, Lucien, can you start?
Hello. Pleased to meet you. I would be very happy to see you. And I must say it's my first experience speaking out to the world, but not really seeing anybody. So I hope one day we might all meet and share our experience in one room. I'd like to make some remarks about what I would say are publishers' essentials. Of course, this is only a sharing of experiences and certainly no attempt to give you any guidance, because all over the world, in every country, in every region, publishers, book markets are just as diverse as literature is. So these are simply some experiences. I founded my publishing house in the 70s. It's a long time ago. The world map was different. The literary world map was different. But we still exist. So I kind of made all of the mistakes that are possible to make within a professional life, I guess. But somehow we managed to move on, to survive, to learn. And I just wanted to share some ideas with you how this can be done. So, in fact, you all know publishing is a very hard daily business. You are always under stress. The day should have 28 hours and 8 days for every week. So very often I find myself in the situation that I don't take the necessary distance. I don't give myself one day of thought, of analysis, just stepping back and thinking, what did you do well last year? What worked? What didn't work? So all these ideas or points which we might see now are just some points you might consider while walking in the woods or in the street or in a park, and just sit down and think, what did I do well? What must I improve? So first, maybe the main question is, what is my mission, or who am I? And please note, this is not a question of marketing, it's more a question of identity, because what you do is what you are, and what you are, you must show to the people. So what kind of publishing house or what kind of publisher do you want to be? The first, publish the books I believe reader will buy. And the other principle is, publish the books I believe the readers must buy. This is from a very famous quote by the German publisher Kurt Wolf. And in fact, I think this defines the two groups or the two orientations of publishers that we see in this world. And by no way I want to I want to judge or set one above of the other. It's just a big difference. If you publish the books you believe readers will buy, of course you give priority on commercial issues, on profit, on numbers, I would say. And if you say, I believe, I want to do the books I believe readers must buy, this, of course, you give priority to the message. You give priority to what we would say also educating the readers or elevating them in their reading habits in the books they buy. Happily enough, one can say that both of these perspectives are equally successful or unsuccessful. By no ways publishers who have a strong commercial impetus or a motive are on the long term more successful than the others, because of course you never know what the public will do. And after so many years, I would say I never really know the number a book might achieve in sales after it's published. To me, all the books are born equal. And of course, you have some experiences, you have some numbers, some authors have already big readerships, but working on the book market is, in fact, really like some form of roulette. You never know what the psyche, what the taste and the habits of the readers will pick up. And very often we all know books that we didn't give them a great economic perspective, or we did not hope, turn out to be the really successful one. So I say it's roulette, but please, and this is our job, let it not be a Russian roulette. So you must play, you must gamble, but always within a rational and safe frame. Of course, you can choose, you fill market gaps or you fill cultural gaps. This is what the first two sentences were about. And then, of course, you must decide, do I want to be independent or do I work within an imprint if I take a job? And well, you might ask yourself, what is an independent? First, it's normally a matter of size, because independent publishers in Europe, of course, you have these semi-professionals on the one end, and maybe you have independent publishers up to 6, 8, or 10, people working there. And then, of course, you have these big commercial groups which do very good books also, but they are really Holtzbrinck, Fischer, they belong to these big groups, Bertelsmann, Random House, you all know them. These are completely different worlds of publishing. And if you are independent, if you choose to be independent, there's always some partisanship connected to this. But you should never, of course, you will not have the illusion that life is easier being independent, because publishing is always about your staying power. Founding a publishing house is always a heroic enterprise. But if you see publishing houses dying, this is a sad and tragic and not really pleasing story in the most cases. So you just choose your best mix. And then, of course, you choose where do you want to work, which are your genres, which are your markets. Of course, we have these simple big groups. Do you do fiction or non-fiction, or are you working the scientific or educational groups? So if you look for your editorial areas, of course, you might already have a full-fledged perspective on what you want to do, but it's always a good thing just to check what will be your, what I call, unique reading proposition. This is the books you want to do, the style you want to present them with are unique, what makes the difference between you and the rest of the publishing world. And of course, there are these what I would say orphaned areas. So what I did when I started in the 70s, I saw and I had the idea that large areas of world literature were not at all represented in the German language market. You had very few Arab books, you had hardly any African, South American, Asian, Pacific books. So this I felt, which because I was a, tiers-mondiste, I thought this is a huge area of this world and you have great writers and this might be a future. And well, in 79, in 1980, I just chose Tawfiq al-Hakim to publishing in German. I met him in Al-Ahram building. And then we said, let's do another Egyptian author. And well, I wrote to Nagi Mahfouz, Nile Street. I called the post office of Cairo for his address and I got it. And so I wrote him a letter. He was happy to be published by Unionsverlag. And he stayed with us ever since. So of course, it's an anecdote, but it shows that if you find the right gap, if you find an orphaned area within your reading or books landscape, you might grow with it. And I can say with Unionsverlag, we're still a small publishing house, but we grew with our authors. They had Nobel Prizes, Nari Mahfouz, Moyenne, then later on, or Maurice Condé, or German Peace Prizes, Yashar Kemal, Asya Djebar. So by committing to these authors, we grew with them, and so we still live. Of course, setting your own boundaries, if you are a partisan, if you are independent, you will always cross these boundaries. Of course, you do it with passion, but you should always have a good reason and calculate the risks if at one time you start just to do some poetry books. And if it's the first time, you might really check if this is the right thing to do, or maybe if this will be a future Nobel Prize winner, and then you really should do it. Making a difference is not so much a matter of, as I feel, of investment or costs, because good design comes practically at no costs. It's just a kind of commitment, and you must be very fancy about how you present, how you construct your products. You choose the fonts, you choose unique fonts maybe for all of your products. You have rules of cover design. Of course, the idea is that you attract readers, and if they love a book, they will come back to you and they will find your identity on each of your books. You have clear rules of typography, and typo is a very cheap, comes at no cost to do a good typo. You have your logo, you have your paper qualities, all the materials, and you think with across all objects and all media. So Unionsverlag chose the Bodoni font as its home base, and we have it all over the place. We have it on every cover in the catalogs and on our websites, and just maybe invisible for the reader or not really perceived, but it's still a unity among everything we do. Quality of text and meta text, the wording of all your communication, I guess we put a lot of energy in all the texts we are communicating with the outside world, and there is no text which is going to the outside world which is not read by our main producer, and so we kind of have a unity of a unity of message and sound, which we try to give. So creating your brand is visual and it's textual, and it needs discipline and creativity. Money matters. Oh dear. Publishing is a mid and long-term investment. So paying authors is always a good investment because the authors are what you are all about. Optimizing your key figures is a permanent obligation. So increasing sales, watching costs at any moment. But as far as I saw in the last 30 years, publishers who went bankrupt were mostly forcing their growth. They were just trying to grow and grow without really having a stable underlying economy, and just growing the number of your titles and not growing the number of your sales figures is a very common cause of death. Well, liquidity is key. End of a publishing house is, as far as I saw, always triggered by a lack of liquidity more than everything else. And what I see that within the more independent publishers, it's a great, you have so many chances to finance your projects by funds, by Goethe-Institute, by all kind of Stiftungen, so which might help you with products. But we take care to finance ourselves by the booksellers till. I mean, it's the cash point, the point of sale, which is the only really, the real basic way of growing, of finding readers, and all other sources like grants, awards, you take them, but every funding has hidden risk, and patrons, which many publishers have patrons, they are always a business risk. And I don't want to name all the publishing houses who got into a great crisis when their patrons at a certain point thought they might move on to a more glamorous business than the book business. And at last, I would like to stress a point which I think is very important, and we all have to do it in all our countries. We are all part of the general book market and the reading culture. And what we did here in Switzerland, we created a kind of a book lobby with all the partners in the book environment. It's the booksellers, the libraries, the authors organizations, educational bodies, literary critics. These are all the institutions and the sectors of the book world which are interested in fighting illiteracy and the lack of reading cultures, because these are our common enemies. And I feel that in many of our countries, and this is certainly not only the developing countries, we have a big problem with what I would call the reading culture and the educational measures towards a better reading culture. So we all deal with the free national international flow of books. You especially deal with copyright enforcement problems. In Germany, we are lucky to have a solid database of books in print. Even if you go to France, you will find a very, very poor situation. And you know best what the situation is in your country, and efficient book distribution infrastructure. I guess Germany, Switzerland, and Austria are top here and throughout the world. But this is, you all know, a great problem, including the payment channels, which are poorly developed in many countries. Overall, We all know that the Arab book market is in a very, very difficult situation. And of course, you might see it from the depressing side or from the problematic side, but I always felt if I would have the choice to start in some other place, start again what I did, I would really choose the Arab book market, because you don't have the Arab world is huge. It is so rich, and you have all these wonderful authors. You have these different regions and storytelling traditions, and there is such a diversity. And at the same time, you have so much of a future ahead, because we all know translations, the number of translations into the Arabic are on a disastrous low level, if I may say so. This is by all statistics. You see that the number of non-Spanish books translated into Spanish language every year is bigger than the total of all non-Arabic books translated into Arabic for many, many decades. So I congratulate you for your historic chances you have, and I hope we can make a little contribution, so just to support you in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucien. بنشكر لوسيان جدا على البرزنتيشن وعلى التفاصيل اللي هو قالها، لان فيها حاجات كتيره مفيده. ويمكن هو اتكلم على مثلا ان هو كدار نشر بيستخدم نفس الفونت، ان هو الواحد ما يفرضش ان هو فكره عمال يكبر او عايز يكبر، فبينتج كتب اكتر من اللي يقدر عليه، فدي بتعمل مشكله، ويمكن هنناقش ده. وفكره برضو البوك لوبي او جماعات الضغط في الكتاب، او ان ازاي التعاون بين دور النشر والجهات هناك، وان ازاي ده مفيد للصناعه كشكل عام. هستأذنكم ان احنا هنضم نورا ولوسيان وهنبتدي الحوار، فهنبتدي الحوار بالانجليزي. وبرضو بفكركم لو في اي وقت في اوريدي اسئله جت وهنبتدي ناخدها، بس لو حد عنده اي سؤال يقدر الكيو اند اي اللي موجود تحت في الشاشه يقدر يدوس عليه ويكتب لنا السؤال، وبنرحب بيكم كلكم مره ثانيه. ممكن نبتدي مع نورا الاول بسؤال. we'll start in English then or Arabic. I think نورا we can start in Arabic. نتكلم مع نورا في العربي الاول وبعد كده نتكلم كلنا بالانجليزي. نورا، بالنسبه لاختيار الناشرين باختيار الاعمال، انت قلتي ان في اعمال كثيره بتجيلكم، هل في طرق تانية مثلا لاختيار الاعمال؟ هل انت ممكن تروحي لكاتب معين وتقولي له ممكن تكتب؟ هل ممكن تشوفي موضوع معين وتدوري له على كاتب؟ ايه الوسائل اللي بتعملي بيها، سواء احنا بنتكلم طبعا كنشر سواء ادبي او غير ادبي، ايه الطرق اللي ممكن نجيب بيها افكار او اعمال للسوق؟
الحقيقة في الفترة اللي فاتت فعلا بقينا بنفكر في أفكار كتيرة. يمكن زي ما كنا بنتكلم إن أنا دايما بفضل إن المؤلفين يبقى عندهم علاقات دايما لونج تيرم مع الناشرين اللي بيشتغلوا معاهم، بس بقى دلوقتي في إقبال كبير على الكتب النون فيكشن. ويمكن أنا بحس يعني إن دلوقتي في تراجع في الرواية للناس اللي هي يعني طبعا في ناس well established موجوده، دي طبعا على طول الروايات بتاعتهم بتبيع كويس قوي، لكن لو مش حد well established او عنده تالنت حقيقيه بقى في تراجع كبير في المبيعات. فبقينا دلوقتي مركزين شويه على قصه النون فيكشن. وفي الفتره اللي فاتت من خلال السوشيال ميديا ومن خلال حاجات كتير قوي بنشوفها، بالعكس بقى عندنا تشالنج كده ان احنا اصلا يبقى حد بيحب مثلا يكتب لكن هو ما فكرش يعمل كتاب. ففي الفتره اللي فاتت فعلا عملنا ده، ويمكن في الفترة اللي جاية في حاجات كتيرة بايوجرافيز وحاجات مهمة كتيرة هتصدر، واحنا اللي كنا خدنا الابروتش يعني مع الكاتب، هو ما بيبقاش مش شرط بالظبط المبادرة. فده بالعكس ده دلوقتي بقى تشالنج بالنسبة لنا، وبنحس ان احنا بنقدر نحط فيه افورت. هو طبعا بيبقى مهلك جدا طبعا، لكن في الاخر بتحس ان انت يعني قدرت توصل وتعمل حاجة مختلفة.
شكرا ليكي. Lucien, you said in your presentation a question about not forcing the growth for publishers. That's a very interesting point, because a lot of small publishers face the problem lots of problems. Lots of small publishers face the problem of growing too fast or thinking that doing more books is better. Where I know that in Germany, lots of publishing houses, they do only like 6 titles per year, 12 titles per year. They have a very strict budget or a very strict list. They don't exceed that number. Here, I think it might be different, because if you see a chance, or if you see what you think is a good book or a possible bestseller, you keep producing books, which sometimes makes a problem with the cash flow. Could you shed a light a little bit on this experience in the European, German, Swiss markets?
This is a very, very difficult question. I believe there is only one size or one number that counts. You must have the adopted size, which adopts well to your infrastructure and to your market and so on. So I guess the market here is more regulated by its traditions and rhythms. So you have the two seasons a year, and just picking a book and publishing it quickly is practically impossible if it's not a book like everybody's waiting for. I could not really tell you how to calculate this, but if within an overall budget, of course you need a kind of a fixed number of new books just to achieve the turnover you have, but you will deteriorate your structures if you publish more books with a lower sales number overall. So I just guess you would have to do a good plan and stick within the plan and have good reasons if you don't stick to it.
Then you increase the titles if you want.
Excuse me, I did not.
Then you increase the titles that you want. If you have a very good chance, you would do this.
Yes, of course we do. So let's say if we have a book, an anthology on chess, yes, and of course you had the big Queen's Gambit series. So we release it in pocket within 2 months now. This is, well, we never know, because it did not sell at all before, but maybe after Netflix, booksellers might put it to the cash box. But this is a calculated risk, and I would never do a book which has there is no real reason for a novel which can just as well be published in 6 months or 12 months to accelerate it. Just because I hope it might be a bestseller, if there is no good reason that it will be, because it might be a TV series or some media, or I don't know what it might be, there is no reason just to accelerate without having a good foundation for this argument.
Okay. My question is to Noura and you both, and we would like to see the difference, if there is, or the similarities, is about the relation between the publisher and the author, which is, I think, a fundamental thing in publishing, and it's one of the main cores of any publishing house that they have. There seems to be sometimes publishing houses that have a very long-term relation with their authors. They have, authors when they start. I know, for instance, in Germany, Suhrkamp, they are very proud of this, and they keep sharing the photos of their authors, and they have a lifetime contract even with their authors. And there are other authors or publishers who keep changing. So you find one author publishing with 5 different publishers at the same time, or simultaneously, or after each other. So I would like first to hear from Noura, what's her take on that, because you have some new publishers, authors, some old authors who are working with you for a long time. And also, I would love to hear from Lucien after that about the same.
Okay, the relation between the author and the publisher is always very complicated and hard. And always our chairman tells us that authors are like glass and they could get scratched very easily, and we have to deal with them, you know, in a very different way. I believe that having long-term relations is very, very important and healthy. But sometimes I believe that some authors do not succeed with some publishers, even us, and they have the right to change the publisher. But if the author have a project, and I always believe that the authors who started with us and till now working with us, this is different, because having a long-term relation, starting the first book, is different than having a very well-established author. It's a little bit complicated when the author is well established and coming to you, because he always keeps on comparing the experience of his old publisher. So now we are trying to focus more on the long-term relations. And of course, we are trying to see new authors, even if they are very well established, and to build a relation with them. For what you said about publishing with many different publishers in the same time, this is very unhealthy, and you know, it's bad for me and for the other publisher, because some authors wants to publish a book every 6 months, and this is very, very hard to do, and it's impossible for a bookstore to keep on adding new titles for the same author. So this is the point. Long-term relations are very healthy. However, authors and publishers have the right to change, you know.
Okay, let me put it to you, Lucien, in a different way, because Noura will have some problems answering this always. Is it okay to take authors from other publishers? Is it, if there is an author who's successful with another publishing house, do you find that it's okay that you go and you maybe offer better conditions, whatever rates, or in general better conditions for the author, and we see sometimes steal it, but I mean, it's still its business. So what's your take on this, or what's the European German take on this?
I don't know. I never did it. always authors always came. No, so I think there are two sides of it. Publishers are in these times the old type of relationship, which I still is what I want to do. We cooperate with an author long term. This is not a complicated, it's a rich relationship, and it's very intimate also. If you work on the text and you follow an author through his ups and downs and the work on the manuscript, and you talk with him and you read it, you are the first reader, and very often the most intense reader if you're also the editor of it. So this is what your old Surkamp model says. So it's a lifetime, and it was also on a copyright wise. It was for the 75 years of legal copyright of it's Hermann Hesse. And Brecht and Uwe Jonsson and all the authors which Surkamp and other German publishers had for the author's lifetime and 75 years afterwards also. But this was a mutual commitment. This area, this is the past. It's neither many authors don't want these kind of contracts. Never do the agents give you such a contract, because they live of 7, 8, 10 years periods where then they can renegotiate, or the author grows more valuable. And so this is really something which hardly exists anymore. And I believe many publishers also do not want to have these long-term relationships. They have these 7 years contract. And this also means that in case your author is not successful or does not have a quick success, you must still work with him. So, and many German big publishers, they just throw the books off their list and then they're gone. And a big part of our program in the pocket is we find orphaned books, orphaned rights, great translations, we reissue them. And this is something where we profit from the short-term, short-sightedness of other publishers.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take a question from the Q&A. We have a question here from Hatem El-Gindi. He's asking about how do you put your publishing plan, a successful publishing plan? And is it better to be specialized or to be a general publisher? I think we take Noura first because I think you have both,
Okay.
a bit of both worlds. So.
Yes, yes. In the beginning of my presentation, I said that we publish in all different fields, but I always say that if I have the opportunity, I believe that being specialized is always better because it's very hard to be very successful in all the different fields. So specialization is very important, and it's easier, I guess. For the plan, the year for us always start after Cairo Book Fair. The Cairo Book Fair ends in February, and we always take a holiday after the book fair. And then in March, we start on looking on what happened in the book fair, what happened during the last year, especially the season of the book fairs, as you know, Sharif, in the Arab world starts maybe by October. So we keep on like seeing the sales, and sometimes we have expectations for books that we do not meet. Sometimes we have other books that we believe that will not succeed as we believe, and people may say, why will you publish a book that you believe that will not be successful? But because we publish in all different fields, so we are not expecting that all our books to be bestsellers. We focus on bestsellers and also on books that have a message like the classic series. So the plan is always in March after the book fairs, and after reviewing all what have happened, and after this, you plan and you see the budget that you have.
So let's put it into perspective. So you say, I'm going to do 5 fiction, 3 non-fiction,
yeah,
political,
yeah.
2, and then you search for the titles, or you already have the titles ready?
Okay, because because we always have we always have books that we receive on the email.
Submission.
And yes, submissions, many submissions that we have, and it's now becoming, we are happy that people trust us and they always want to work with us, but we have a plan. So sometimes I discover, for example, that I don't have any short story, so I say, oh, I have to do a short story book. For the novels, we are trying to focus more on our, on our authors with our list, and just publishing for 2 or 3 authors with us, new authors with us, and by the word new, I don't mean a new author, I mean a new author to the publishing house, because you get what I mean.
Yeah. And Lucien, what would you say? How do you do a successful publishing plan? And I think you are one of those specialized publishers, we can say, but we want an overview of the market if it's possible.
Well, I mean, we do fiction, and so we don't have as many genres, but we have within the fiction certain lines. And I mean, as buying rights, translating the books, this is an ongoing process. So we just have our list maybe ready for the next 3 years. So we have the books, we know they will come. And then when the season approaches, that's what we do. Most do it. We just find the type of mix. We know we need steam engines, locomotives, yes, the books that push the other, which booksellers say, yes, this I need. And then for one, the bookseller will say, yes, I need it. I will put a second one, which might be of medium, yes, success as to now. And then I always care to put a joker, because the joker is what nobody knows, what you present freshly, newly, which has a chance to be the bestseller of tomorrow. And if you don't do these jokers in your program, you're like an oil company not doing research and development and drilling for new oil sources. They will be hit by the stock market because they don't have new material coming on. So this is a mix. I think in these days, we have this tragic pyramid. It's always the books on top which give you safety and security and where you have the big sales. And the mid-list and even these joker titles, hope is sometimes works well because every common hope pushes. But this is, in fact, the biggest problem. If you have a season without one of these books that booksellers or critics think they need, it might be a more complicated season than otherwise.
It's funny that you say that because in my publishing plan, I always say I have a 10% of risk, which is your joker. So I can try with like a strange title, a very big book, different genre, a crazy idea, and amazingly, most of the time, not always, it works very well, and it becomes like a new line that we might do. So yeah, I believe very much. I would really recommend to people that they might be focused is very good, but also to have a very small margin maybe for some chances, as we say.
I will give you an example. In 1985, I had a joker. It was called
Naguib
Mahfouz. We sold 300 copies in 3 years and 30,000 in 3 minutes. So that's, of course, a very historic anecdote. But it shows where the potential might be.
Okay, let's go back to the Q&A. We have a question from the beginning from Mr. Muhammad Salama, who's asking us mainly in the Arab world or Egypt about after what happened after the pandemic of the sales dropping. How are we reacting to this, Noura? And also if there are any marketing gimmicks or ideas or risks that you have taken. And we might also shed a light on the audiobooks, and also maybe Lucien would give us something on audiobooks in Germany. So would you please start, Noura?
Okay, so last year when we started the crisis, it was very hard for all of us. So we thought that we have to focus on online sales. And at the beginning, we did very well. And I guess that the sales for the electronic platforms made a great job for all of us as publishers. And it made us focus on it more, because this is the future. With the crisis or without it, we have to focus on the online sales. And I here mean you know, the selling through online websites or having the EPUB version. This is the first thing. And then now we are focusing more through events, virtual events all the time. And it's really doing a great job. Like having Zooms and having lives for the authors and having some book discussions, and I guess this is very helpful. And though the situation was very hard, but I guess that there are more readers now and more groups. I guess, Sharif, you can see the reading groups that are, you know,
book clubs.
Yes, and book clubs and book groups. I mean, on the Facebook and Instagram, you know. So though it was very hard for us all, but I guess there is a new potential for all of us. This is for the first point. The second point, it was about the audiobooks. You mean?
Yeah. How is audiobooks doing now?
Yes, it's
in the Arab world.
It's doing very well till now. Some people, of course, see it very hard just to listen a book. However, I believe that it's doing well. and that most of our hits are now available as audio. And
it's not affecting the sales of the physical book. I mean, having access to it.
We have very good, we have very good market for the sales, but because of the piracy, and this is a long story that needs, other.
We have a question about piracy as
yes,
well. Yes.
So we believe that we have a very good market for both. And I attended once a discussion. It was by Google in Frankfurt from couple of years, and they said it will always remain 50-50 because it will never, the paper book will never disappear. Definitely the electronic book is taking from the paper book, but both of them will always be there. This is what we
What
believe.
about Germany, Lucien? Can you tell us?
Well, in the pandemic, of course, you have this kind of short-term changes, and I think the biggest problem were with the big book chains, which were not in the residential areas where there was no personal relationship to the customers. They were in the closed cities. And I guess publishers with a big list or a big backlist were more stable. And this is the short term. And long term, I believe that Corona will accelerate a development which I think is very dangerous. It's a growing lack of cultural diversity, and this is related to what happens in the media. We have a dramatic reduction of literary critics, and just with the corporation of papers, you have in Switzerland, you have 1, 2, 3 literary critics only, yes, in the institutions, 2, 3 big newspaper chains and radio and TV, and that's it for literature. And this is dramatic, and I believe Corona will accelerate this, and you will have a growing lack of diversity, which is for every emerging author or genre or book will be a big problem. I think this is the secular problem we will be facing, because people are also buying more and more what is just on top of the media, and we all know this is a very steep period.
Niche, very small.
Audio and ebook are maybe have the same numbers, between 5. It depends very much on the genre, and maybe 20, 30, 50, in some genres even more percent. For quality fiction, I would say it's between 5 and 10%. And the more popular the genre is, crime and then fantasy, the higher the ebook and audio numbers are.
Increase. Okay. A quick question also taken. We have many questions and time is running. So if you have any question, please send us, because I don't think we'll be able to take all, but we'll try to get as much as possible now. Noura, fast, how do you price your books? And also Lucien.
Okay.
Do you have an equation for this? Is there an easy way to calculate the cost and price of a book?
Yes, we always add all the expenses on the book. And as I said in the presentation, we always prefer to price the book after having it from the printing house, because, the paper is related to the dollar price and it's always changing. The designers, if they are outsourced, and you have to add the book cover, you have to add, if you're also outsourcing the editors and anyone doing anything in the book. And you have, of course, fixed expenses you need also to add and to estimate. And
administration and all the salaries, the marketing.
So yes, and for us, for example, after the dollar fluctuation in the market from a couple of years, we chose, to decrease our profit, not to have our books very expensive, and now we're glad that always readers say that we have very reasonable pricing, because I cannot tell a publisher how he expects his profit, what is, because sometimes publishers are doing a calculation in a very different way than us. But I mean that after what happened
So
for the dollar,
you calculate all the costs and then
you have a profit. You say
you multiply it by something.
Yes, you multiply it by something. This is what all publishers, I guess, do.
5, I think.
No, less. After the dollar, it's less, because it's becoming crazy to if you compare it to the dollar price here in Egypt. So that's why we chose to print to decrease the profit and to print more. And we are very happy that we always have new print runs and new editions for many of our.
I think when you have a second edition, then when the profit really starts, because
yes,
you have a lot of fixed costs that disappear.
And sometimes authors ask us. Sometimes I have a big novel like 500 pages for example, 80 pounds. And I have a smaller novel like 250 pages for 80 pounds also. And the authors keep on complaining why this novel is like this, because of the print run. So the best sellers, we always print a huge quantity. And here is, it's a risk because you're not sure that you will sell all this, but you make, yes. So this is also another way.
Lucien, do you have like a simple equation for this?
Well, there's a saying that calculation is a good reason to do the book in spite of it, because it's always, calculations are always prospective, and you never know about the sales figures. Well, there are different techniques to do it. You have the multiplication, and then you have the Deckungsbeitrag. I don't know the word in English. So in fact, we have very little freedom to set the prices, because on the market, there is a very clear expectation that, let's say, a fiction hardcover might be between 20 and 24 euro or 26. And even if it has 260 pages or 380 pages, you will not be really able to launch it well if it's more than 24 euros. So in the end, it's all about the mix within one season and 1 year and your program. And even more with Pocket, you have it's moving, but you have very distinct price ranges. We call it below 15 euro, between 15 and 20 euro, and everything which is above is. So we don't have a lot of
so in Germany it's quite the opposite. Then you have the price set already, and you have to work with your cost then and print run.
You cannot work on your cost. You have the printing prices, which are, let's say, for standard books more or less always the same, and you have translation cost. This is depending on the volume, and well, frankly, I don't know. It's just you never know until the year is end if your calculation was right.
So it's left to the market then to decide with the sales. Well, our target group here is young, new publishers who are trying to fight what we are in, and we are trying to give them hope. So let me here think as one of them, or how it would be. I'm a young publisher. I started a publishing house. I have a couple of very successful titles, maybe bestsellers. I'm selling a lot, and probably they are being pirated, but we're not here to talk about piracy, so we'll skip this pirate part. But it's selling well. I'm doing well. It's always the question, what's next? I mean, publishers expect that every title will be, or most of the titles will be superstars, will be like bestsellers, and that can cover then their costs. But if you have one or two big titles or bestsellers, how do you find the next? What to do? Should I continue on the same line? Should I start a new line? How, Lucien, would you tell such a publisher if they are starting and they are fresh and they have success story, but where to go from there? And also, Noura, we would love to hear, because you know more about the market here, if you can give them some light on this after Lucien.
I would always say that the success of a book is volatile and you might never be able to repeat it. And the success of an author is really something with a big standing and stability. So always, I'm talking about fiction, publish authors, do not publish books. You have maybe in crude economic terms, a one-time investment in making reading tours or anything. And then if he is well accepted, if readers love them, he will move on with you. So always, for fiction, always concentrate on authors and not books. And frankly, I'm not good at organizing successes. Maybe I'm better in having them, but I don't know a recipe besides the very practical issues. You have a subject which works well, you do a second book on the subject. And I think the biggest problem is that what I said, the gaps don't scream. So if there is something which is lacking in your cultural world, you would have to look and listen very careful to find out. Is it quality translation of international literature? This is, let's say, something, if you have a quality translation, this will last you for 20 years if it's read in schools or by scholars or by the big public. This is an investment. So always, I think, check on durability. I would love that people in 50 years look at my list and say, wow, these authors, we still read them, they were there.
Okay, Noura.
Okay, as Lucien said, for the well-established authors, I believe that we should focus on the author and not on the titles. And for example, some of our selling authors, we recommend for them that some of the old titles we do not republish, because always when the author is working on himself and he's having a mutual good relation with the publisher, every title is always better than the one before. So this is the first issue that we have to build long relations and to see what we've did successful in the past and not to repeat any mistake we've done. The second thing that you have to be always to take a step forward, because sometimes there are some trends. For example, Sherif, you know, from a couple of years when there was the trend of having very weird titles for the novels, and then this trend, for example, became obsolete. So you have always to be taking a very quick step, and you have always to keep on analyzing all what's happening and to ask yourself, is this what I was expecting? What have gone wrong? What I have to do? And not to repeat yourself, because also this is a problem that we face, that sometimes the authors keep on repeating themselves. So this is also another problem.
Okay, let me go back to the Q&A. We have a question about digital marketing from Ahmed Osama. I think also Ahmed, our next session, which will be next Tuesday at the same time at 3 on the same place here, you will find Ali Abdelmenaim will be discussing this more, because he will be talking to the online bookstores and how we can work this. So I would rather maybe wait for it, or if someone wants to talk. Also, there is a question from Mr. Wael Abdel Eder about selling rights and buying rights actually from Germany and the very high advances they're asked. Do you have a say about this, Lucien? Would you like to say something?
I think every decent agent in, let's say, well, first I would say I think it's a big problem. I should really all work on it. You should have Arab agents from your countries for your literature, because this is colonialism still, or neo-colonialism, or however we would call it, that you move to London, or your authors have to move to London for a professional, let's say, service. Some of them now are starting, and this is great, but there's still a great gap. I think every decent author agent knows that for some markets you have 3-digit advances, and of course, if you have some publishers offering higher for Handke or anything, this is a problem, same as everywhere. But we don't have no problem giving away some rights for an advance of 200 or 300 euro if we see.
But the thing is, 200 and 300, sometimes it's too much. If you convert them to Egyptian pound, it's for a title, it becomes like a big part of the cost of production cost.
I can only recommend to every agent or publisher, never stop a Arabic or Turkish or I don't know, edition for financial reasons. You don't have the right to do it because you have to provide readers with books.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Also, I would like to talk here a little bit about Mr. Karim Fouda is talking about the unique reading propositions. Do you have any best practice examples, recommendations to share with the audience? Lucien, I mean, starts or Noura, I mean.
I had a technical problem. I didn't get the question.
Okay, building your unique reading proposition. Do you have any best practice examples and recommendations to share with the audience?
I feel that this is a kind of a taste which we develop in the team.
Is it more like branding? Is it if you have the what we call branding and you have, as you said, the same font, maybe the same template for the covers, a certain taste in choosing titles, this
Yes,
kind of build up with you?
It's the outside, but the inside, I think, is important. What is your spirit when you read? What is your emotion when you decide? So we are readers in a committed publishing house. Those who make the decisions, they decide as readers, as first readers, as test readers, as potential multiplying readers, and so, in fact, I can say we publish what we like, and this makes our identity, and that's why we are able to transform it into physical, aesthetical, marketing. So people follow a publisher's list because they know what to expect, but they also know that they might be surprised at moments what they want. And so it's not a narrow path, it's just a kind of a literary world vision, I would say. But this is not every publisher's principle, of course.
Of course. Time is running, so we have to be fast. Noura, I think you will have more of an answer because you do quite a diverse range of books. You're not really focused
Yes, I have
something.
an incident that I'd like to share. It's very related to what's happening. For example, we have our classic series. I guess you know that it has all the old classics, Gubran and Manfaluti and 1001 Nights. And from 2 weeks, we found a new title in the market with exactly the same cover of our series. And unfortunately, it was also for our same designer. And he said that the publisher told him, I need it exactly like Masriah Lubnaniah cover. And for us, it was really, we were shocked and we were happy that people now are having a trust in this series, and just seeing the cover makes, because some readers are not aware of the name of the publishers, so they just go to the cover and to the series. And we were happy to feel that people are very connected to our series, but at the same time, we felt that you always have to be faster, and you always have to go a step forward.
Okay. I'll say something because I visited Lucien at his office in Zurich, and the question was, what was the best selling title for Naguib Mahfouz? Don't answer it now, we'll answer it at the very end, which is like 7 minutes away. So please, audience, if anybody thinks what is the best selling title for Naguib Mahfouz in the translation to German, send us, and this will be an interesting, because we kept counting the print runs in his room. He has a big room with all the backlists. So it was interesting to know what works best. And it's also a sign for us if we want to sell rights, what worked better even for Naguib Mahfouz as a Nobel laureate, how it worked with him. But Lucien, there's a lot of questions coming from Ms. Fatma Al-Boudi, and she's interested in knowing more about your publishing house. If you have a very brief, are you working on the Arabic section of your publishing house? Are you working? Is there any new Arabic titles you're doing? How many titles you do per year generally, and if there are Arabic? So if there's a special genre you're interested in, if you can give just a brief, because time is running, we have only less than 10 minutes.
I might give a surprising answer. I think what I always did or wanted to do is that I do good literature without regard of its country or culture of origin. So just to make a difference to all the other publishers who at the time, this is last century, but of course they didn't do Arab authors, they didn't do Asian authors. So because they cared about where the author is from, yeah. So and I don't care. For me, this world literature is a republic of spirits, and every writer has the same rights despite his language, religion, color, you name it. So of course we had our share of Arab authors within our list, like we have a share of French authors or Turkish authors or African authors, but we never did know equilibrium. We didn't count them really, so we just looked 360-degree for what we thought was.
What was the last Arabic title you published?
Well, we prepare from Atif, the Gazan author, and the last was. Let me tell you.
They are many. They are many.
I will show you.
So you cannot remember.
Yes.
Okay.
I will just show you the list we have. Let's see.
And when was that? That would be also important question, I think.
Atif Abu Saif was one of our last novels from Palestine. It was the diary of the war in Gaza. Very impressive book, and though this is what was for me a very important. We also have his new novel in the working. And we did Raja Alim, and
maybe we should send you the latest version of the Arab Voices. That might be, you will find some interesting titles.
I have your catalog, and we will hope to do more. We're a small house, yes.
That would be great.
Yes.
So finally, as we're coming to an end, Noura, do you have 2 minutes? Also think of a young publisher. What would you tell them to do? And then we'll answer the question of what was the best-selling title of Naguib Mahfouz at the end. But Noura, could you tell us, if you in this now pandemic situation, we have a book fair coming in a couple of months. We have hopefully things will open or not. What would you tell a young publisher or to do right now? Should they?
I guess they should have a clear vision. Definitely joining the market now is very hard, because when we compare the situation from 10 years, definitely it was different, but I believe that there are more potential readers now, and I can see the age group is changing. So whenever we do any survey, we find that the readers are very young, and from the age of 18 till 25 are the most age buying books, and also most of them are females, and this is very funny always that females read more than men. And I guess know your audience and know who you are targeting, because this will affect the style of the book and the cover and everything would affect the book if you knew your audience better. And sometimes we always have a target group in our mind, but sometimes some of our books we find that they are doing also good with other age groups. So I guess they have to focus, and I guess they have to review well and read well before deciding on any title. This is also very important.
Okay, and for you, Lucien, what would you say to a young publishing house in crisis? What should they focus on?
I would look at the person who is running the publishing house. I would try to find out if I would be a kind of a consultant or so I would try what he is like, where is his inner compass heading for, and that's the direction he should go. And everybody will tell him, don't go into publishing. This is not a way to secure your life standard. And so after 99 arguments not to do it, if you still do it, you might have a chance.
Well, you must love it very much, so you'll be able to do it.
You do it in spite of all the arguments against it, so you have a chance.
There was an old saying that if you want to be a millionaire out of publishing, you have to start a billionaire, and then you will lose the money and become a millionaire with publishing, which is not what we're here for. We're here for hope, and we believe that there will be. I mean, I personally would add here that we would work on the house from inside, as we say. We used the chance for the past year to reorganize our publishing house. We worked on our metadata. We worked on our preparing more lists, more online. We were more stores. We found like who does what, and we tried to work with our backlist. We tried to revive all titles. These are all things I'm saying for publishers that they might think. We tried to work even on like a new software for the company, like more databases. This is really important, and maybe in these times where we have less sales, we can work on preparing ourselves, so when hopefully things pick up, we'll be ready. We don't start to prepare ourselves then. We'll be ready by then, and everything will be on track, and we'll be maybe ahead of others who are still waiting to work. So I would like to thank you all. Let me remind you that if you need the presentations of Noura and Lucien, you can send to Nikki Thiron. Her email is in the chat. It's thiron@bookmesse.de. So you can send her, and she will send you the presentation. Next week we'll be here. Ali Abdelmenem will be here talking about online bookstores and how does this affect us, and also initiatives from Germany and from Egypt. So this will be also very interesting. And I have to answer your questions because I said I will answer it. I think, Lucien, you should say how many copies or how many editions you sold from the best-selling Naguib Mahfouz.
You remember what I told you?
Of course. No, you say it.
Well, Midak Ali was the best selling novel, and it still is. And I think we are about 350,000 with all the editions that occurred throughout the years. But you also see this is also a big wave up and down and up.
Of course.
And down.
Of course.
Throughout the years.
فالعمل الأكثر مبيعا كان زقاق المداء، باع حوالي 35,000 نسخة لحد دلوقتي ولسه بيبيع. فده كله أحب أشكركم تاني كلكم، وأفكركم بإن إحنا مستنيينكم الأسبوع الجاي إن شاء الله. كلنا هنتكلم تاني في القاهرة. الأمل يبدأ. بنشكر الرعاة لينا وبنشكركم جميعا، وفي انتظاركم بعد اسبوع من النهارده. مع السلامه.